Hey everybody, welcome to this special session of the summit. This is Mirban Aranshad again, and I'm here with my friend Larry Lauer, and it's really an honor and a pleasure to have you on, Larry. You're down at the beautiful USCA National Campus, which I can't wait to be at in May, so that'll be really great. But yeah, first of all, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today about the mental game and how we can prepare for our matches. And yeah, how have you been?
I've been well and really appreciate you having me at the summit and the invitation to speak about preparation. And it's one of my favorite topics, but it's certainly something that can help all players, whether you're a pro, an adult player, or a junior. So definitely looking forward to this. But I've been well and busy with tournaments and training camps and everything. So yeah, season's well underway as we know. So.
Great. And just as some background, and you do obviously a ton of great work with some great players. Like who are you working with when you're down there at the USA's national campus?
Yeah, so now it's really heavily focused on junior players, and some transition pros. So we have a lot of our young best juniors will come in and visit, then go home. So um, we have players like Reese Brantmeyer, Ashlyn Kruger, training out of the campus. We have as well on the guys side, we have a number of players that have been there, been coming more in and out, but so there's a bunch of players. When people ask me, who have I been working with, I say pretty much, I've been involved with a lot of different American players. I can't really speak to specific people, but most of the American players over the last 10 years have had some involvement with, because they come through the training center and we do presentations, we do uh, obviously individual consults, and we also just provide that support whatever they need. So some players I work with directly, some I don't, but certainly it's fun, and we're doing our best to make a difference. So
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you definitely are. It's so important, as we see on the tour. A lot of the trials and tribulations people go through, and it's mainly the mental side, I'd say. So, and as far as like preparing mentally for matches, I don't want to take too much away from your presentation that's coming up, but I mean, uh, how often do you think adult play? And I don't know how much you work with like adult recreational players, probably not too much, but how much of that is an issue? Do you think, like how underutilized is that, and how much can be gained from actually doing that?
I think that the preparation for matches is vastly underutilized by adult players. I played league tennis when I was in Michigan and Michigan State University, and we had a team and played for the 4-0 team. And when I showed up, great guys and some really good players, but they were just a group of individuals that happened to come together and play together. But there was no real, they had a Tuesday practice, but, you know, the way you do things increases your chances so much in terms of your performance and just enjoying the performance. And I think about, why would adult players put more time into preparing? Because they're busy. They might be traveling from a pretty good distance, in the car to play. If they're playing league tennis, uh, maybe they're coming straight from work or being with their children. So there's a lot of different reasons why we wouldn't really prepare. And again, I'm not talking about the preparation that, if everyone's seen Nadal's preparation at the US Open, they're like, that guy, that's the hardest workout of my year, his warm up. But you can do a few things that can really help you perform. So if you're willing to make the time, 10, 15 minutes, you can be healthier. You can start faster to your matches. You can enjoy the experience more because you're playing better, just because you've loosened up. And we'll talk about some of the details of that. One of the things about that, Mirvan, is that people don't like to do it because, well, everybody's kind of hanging around and you're being social and you're talking. Do you want to
Yeah.
be the person who's off doing their own thing, warming up, listening to music, stretching, doing a dynamic, shadow strokes, visualizing, all these things? But if you want to get an advantage on your opponents, then you have to be a little bit different. And I think this area that you asked me to speak about is definitely one of those places where you can get a big advantage and improve your game.
Awesome, Larry. Really excited to hear more about that from you. Just say hello to a few people. Jay, look, hello from Moco. That's where I am. Awesome. John, hello from a sunny day in Victoria, BC. Definitely wish I was there. It's a beautiful place. Al, hi
Yes, it
from
is.
San Jose, California. Yeah. Hello to you, Al. Raj, do you want us to answer the three questions? Yeah, there's 3 questions below this video as far as like where you're from and your level and your biggest issue in tennis or problem. So feel free to post that below in that section or here. Either way works for us. Jamie, hello again from Philly. Awesome.
Let's
Now
go
I want a
Philly.
Philly cheesesteak. Yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
you're a Philly fan, are you?
I lived in Philadelphia for a while. I worked for Flyer Skates. I was a hockey director, believe it or not. I know I'm on the
Oh.
tennis summit, but as a hockey director back 22 years ago, but a huge Flyers fan, Phillies, Sixers. So yeah,
Okay. Oh,
and
very
cheese
cool.
cheesesteak fan as well.
Yeah. Cool. Respect it. I'm in, Maryland, so I've kind of favor the DC teams, but good rivalries there.
Understand. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Surferin, hello from sunny, good vibes, Stockholm. Awesome. Cool.
Okay, Stockholm.
Love to
Nice.
see it. So yeah, Larry, I won't blabber on anymore for now, at least. So I guess you have a cool presentation for us to check out. So I mean, we can go to that if you'd like.
Sure. I just wanted to share a few things, here today with our audience and some important ideas that I feel, even if you can just do a few things, it can make a big difference in your tennis. So, this idea that why would we prepare for our matches mentally? Well, I think it's a way to get the best out of ourselves and to find more consistent performances, which is we all want. Even if we're not that serious, it's not fun to go and not know what player is going to show up, right? Am I going to be 2-5 today or am I going to be 4-5? So, nobody, and again, the U.S. system of rating that, but nobody likes that. So one of the things that I like to talk to our players about is, this metaphor of entering the highway at the speed of traffic. And I bet our audience, some of them will remember Sammy Hagar, I can't drive 55. This idea, that you can't go this slow. He's got to go in the higher gear and he's got to speed. And I'm not recommending people speed, but the point is that when we start a match, we want to enter the speed of the match, right? So when you get on the highway, you don't enter the highway at 30 mile per hour because you're going to get run over. Someone's just going to come up from behind you and smack you. And you don't enter the highway at 100 mile per hour because you're going to run over somebody, right? So you have to try to get into traffic close to the speed of traffic. You can't allow yourself 5 minutes to warm up to the speed of traffic because it's really going to mess up the flow. So you have that entrance ramp that you do that on. Well, to me, our warm up is our entrance ramp to the match. And we want to be as close to the speed of match as we can be when we start to match. This way you can start really giving that effort that you want from the first ball, striking the ball the way you want to, executing certain points, the patterns, strategies from the start. It gives you a big edge. And we know that if you can get the first break, you're more likely to win. I mean, that makes sense. So, that metaphor of let's start at the speed of traffic and not wait to just get into the match, the flow match. I hear that, well, I need to play a couple games. Okay, but that might be a couple games that you're now behind. You're down 0-2 and you're just starting to see the ball. So not necessarily the best move. But when we talk about pre-match preparation, we're talking about planned activities. So these are things that you do on purpose. They're done consistently, and they help you reach your optimal performance state. Okay, and that, if everyone on listening, watching this, that is this place physically, mentally, emotionally where you're at your best. And that formula is different for every single person. There are some guidelines, there's some principles we want to follow, but as a player, you need to figure out what that formula looks like. What's it going to take for me to play my best tennis? So your best source of information is going to be your past. When have you played your best? And and how did you get yourself ready to play? So it's a bit of a kind of, it's kind of an experiment in some ways where you're trying to figure out what brings my best tennis out. Pros do this all the time as they're moving up the system, right? They're learning about when they played their best, when they played worse, and what were the differences in the preparation. We're talking about that all the time. That's something that our players, our adult players, can definitely take advantage of too. So what do we mean by ready? So I think ready is this place in general where you're present, you have great positive energy, and you're focused, you're committed to a plan, a strategy. So there's some goal that you have maybe. So when you come into your match, how do you know if you're ready? Well, physically, okay, you need enough energy to be ready to, like we said, enter the speed of traffic. So you got to be warmed up, you got to be loose, the heart's got to be pumping blood, the muscles have to be stretched, all these things. Mentally, you need to be focused. Because if you're focused on what you're doing for dinner or what people are saying on the sideline or a fight you had last night, you're not going to play very good tennis, right? And again, tennis is way more enjoyable when you're present. And so having that present focus, right? And how do you create that? How do you get there? And finally, emotionally, tennis is a very emotional sport because either playing doubles, so it's a highly energized version of tennis, or we're out there by ourselves in singles. And that can be quite emotional as well because we feel quite responsible for what's happening. Emotionally, are you in the right space to compete? And what does that look like? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling a sense of control? Are you feeling composed? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you enthusiastic? So frustrated, angry? Where is that emotional sort of mix that you're at? And you want to target those emotions that you want to have more so than the others. Now, we don't have total control of our emotions, unfortunately, but we can do things to try to get us close to the right emotional mix as we go into a match. So when you think about being ready, think about it's not just physical. That's what everybody thinks about. It's also mental. It's your focus and emotional, that emotional energy, that the feelings that you have going into a match. So physically, to make this a little bit more concrete, think about what temperature you want to be at when you're playing your best. If people say like Federer is cool, calm, collected, maybe he might think about this differently. By the way, I've never talked to him about it, but maybe he feels like he's at like 40 degrees, pretty cool, composed. And then maybe someone else is really fiery. Maybe they're like 80, 90. Maybe Nadal's there, right? I don't know. Maybe Serena's like 80. She's a very fiery competitor, whereas someone else would be a lot not showing as much of that. So that, again, is a very much a subjective individual thing. But what you want to be able to do is put a number to or a temperature to when you're playing your best. What does it feel like? Am I fiery? Am I energized? Am I demonstrating a lot of energy? Am I just cool, calm, and collected, going about my business? Who are you on the court? I see a lot of players have no idea about what their best energy looks like. They just are sort of going with the flow, riding the wind. Whatever comes, comes. And if you want to be that way, that's fine. But I feel like probably a lot of the people in the audience are looking for the edge. They're looking for ideas about how to be a better player, perform more consistently. And here again is a place where you can do that if you can find the right physical and emotional energy prior to your match. You get a big edge on your opponent. You're going to play better. So how do you do that? Well, there's actually, see on the slide here, you can search habits for tennis success, set the pre-match preparation plan on our USTA website. On there, there's a link to go to a worksheet where you can fill out some questions that will help you determine sort of your best match temperature and your worst match temperature. Give you a sense of where you're at with your energy before you play your best and when you're not playing your best. So hopefully, those that are watching, search that up, download it, fill it out, maybe have a teammate or someone who knows you fill it out as well, and then give you good feedback. Or maybe it's your coach that you hit with. focus. So this mental preparation as well, think of it as a funnel, okay? And the day before you play a match, you're thinking about a lot of different things. I don't necessarily think you should be solely focused on your match. But as you get closer to your match, you're starting to funnel in that focus. You're thinking of fewer things and fewer things. And this is an intentional process. Now, pros will start that process probably a lot earlier than a recreational player. However, it depends on the person and what they're able to do, what's going to make them successful. So, when you play tennis the next day, do you like to think about your match the night before? Do you want your mind off of your tennis? How does it make you feel to be focused on your tennis? Do you get too anxious and worked up and then it's not good for you? Or does it make you feel ready to maybe think about how you want to play the next day, the goals you have, that kind of thing? Typically, what we encourage players to do is to visualize the night before about their game plan, how they're going to play, and or to journal, take down in writing what they're going to do to cement that commitment and that readiness to do it. Same thing in the morning. Again, how much you're going to do as an adult recreational player. I don't know, but doing things like getting loose, eating certain meals, listening to music, these things can help you get in the right headspace and get that focus start to funnel in. Once you get on site, again, that can be very distracting because you're with maybe you have teammates or people that maybe your opponents that you're playing. And if you don't take that quiet time away from all the socializing, you might show up at the start of the match going about 30 miles per hour. Your focus is on things other than your tennis. I'm a big proponent of, as you can imagine, having a really good warm up, because that's a place where you really start to funnel in. So if you can get a warm up hitting with someone prior to your match, that's a big opportunity really to start to dial in your focus, even if you haven't dialed in your focus before that. Seeing the ball, moving, hitting the shots you want to hit during the match. I even suggest playing a few points if you can, just to start to feel like you're really getting into it and you're exerting yourself and doing the things you do during the match. For example, Ivan Lendl said that, in the pre-match, he would hit a few balls, just wire them off the back fence or the wall because he was just kind of figuring out what he had that day. So he'd hit it as big as he could and then he'd bring it back into the court. And I always found that to be a great way to help you open up your game, your strokes, and then you work your game back into the court. Obviously, you don't want to hit every ball out. So your warm up with your opponent is where you should have funneled all the way down to now the only thing you're thinking about is tennis. And specifically, when you're warming up with your opponent, this is not a time to try to hit winners. Obviously, that really upsets people. But it is a time to move your feet, really swing through your shots, accelerate, and hit a good shot. Don't get so caught up of the ball having to land in, more so than just doing the things that makes you successful when you play the match. And then finally, like we talked about at first ball, to me, this is where you start kicking in your between point routines. But you have a good energy. You're very clear on your strategy or your plan if you have one, which I would greatly suggest you do if you're looking to enhance your performance. And you're really present and ready to go. All right, last
Larry,
couple. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, just about the night before point. I was wondering,
Yeah.
I'm sure that many of us may not even know like whether it's better for us to focus heavily on tennis the night before or not at all. So I mean, would you suggest that we just kind of experiment like before a match one night we're all in and then the next match like maybe we don't think about it at all and just kind of see how that affects us?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a way to do it. And you might also get some insights from other parts of your life, right? Like if in your
Hmm.
job you have to present and maybe what you do in sales or marketing or maybe whatever job, if it requires you to perform, maybe you can get some insights into how you prepare for that, right? Do you like to
Yeah.
spend a lot of time the day before? I know it's not the same, but it gives you a sense of, when you think more about things, you start getting anxious. or does it make you feel ready? Now, the content of that thinking really is the important part of it, right? Am I creating a lot of doubts and what ifs and worries, or am I honing in on the things that I'm going to do to be successful? And this is where I was going to go with the next slide, is that, a great place to start, honestly, before the match, maybe even the night before, is to do some visualization or recreate in your mind images of you playing successfully, and focusing on these ABCs, or these are the key kind of process goals, or the how-to goals, how you're going to play, how you're going to compete. They're going to make you successful. And I think, a lot of times players can overthink things. So maybe in the morning of your match, you might go through, write down a couple things you're trying to do, a couple ABCs, like I'm trying to, get forward to the net. I want to make sure I'm setting up points to my forehand and use my cross court forehand. And maybe I'm thinking about, just really being focused and ready for each point. So I give myself these simple goals that are in my control. These things I commit to, and it gives me a sense of readiness, but also a sense that, okay, I have a plan. And when you have a plan and that's how you're evaluating yourself, am I doing these things? It creates a sense of certainty, which is like an antidote for anxiety. You think of where fear and anxiety come from. Fear and anxiety come from uncertainty, what we don't know. Well, tennis is always uncertain, even up to the last point. So how do we create more of that certain feeling? When we draw our focus to our process goals, our ABCs. I'm going to do A, B, and C in this match. These are things that are under my control for the most part. And if I do those things, I'm going to walk off the court happy and proud. So that's a way to counteract the anxiety that comes. And it also is a way to quiet the overthinking. So if you can hone in on, okay, I'm going to do these things. I see it in my mind. I write it down. Boom, period on the end of the sentence. I'm done. I'm not going to think about it anymore. I'm going to move on with my evening. I'm going to move on with my morning. I've done my mental work. I don't need to spend so much more time thinking about it.
Great stuff.
So I don't know, folks might be saying, well, how do you put this into practically put this into work? And I would say a few things. Get out your pen or your pencil, get out a piece of paper, and just think about, what are the activities that I do before a match that help me feel ready, mentally, physically, emotionally. What are they doing for me? And once we know what that optimal performance state is, which you can learn more about in that worksheet I mentioned that's online, we can then start planning our activities to hit that optimal performance state. So my suggestion, whatever you do, keep it simple. All right. So you don't need to be Novak Djokovic with your preparation. Do 2 or 3 things. If you do 2 things now and you think there's one thing that would help you, add that one thing and see how it goes. I wouldn't add more than one thing at a time, probably. Be consistent with it. One time doing it is not going to tell you whether or not it's successful. Do it over 5 matches. Do it over 8 matches. See how that impacts how you feel on the court, how you prepare, how you start matches. Are you in control of your emotions? Are you able to swing out and execute? See what that does for you. A big part of this is timing. How much time should you take to prepare mentally? That's up to the person, right? And so, some people feel they need 30 minutes. Some people need 15. It kind of depends on the person and what that is. So you go into this figuring out, okay, when do I need to kind of go to myself and get ready? When does my warm-up happen? Typically, we like our warm-up, on the juniors, for example, to happen, maybe it's happening 45 minutes before the match, right? And again, there's some tweaking that goes on an hour before the match, depending on how much that person wants to warm up. Make sure the things you're doing are in your personal control. We're not talking about superstitions here. We're talking about things that you do that make you successful. So it's not about having to have your lucky socks. This is about making sure your rackets are strung, that you have a game plan, that your body's warmed up and loose, the things that you can do to make sure you're ready to play. Final 2 things, and we can talk more about this. Make sure you're checking in with yourself pre-match. Don't be unintentional, like, oh, time to play. That gets people into trouble. And so check in maybe half an hour before, 15 minutes before. Where am I at? Am I ready to go? Yeah, I'm good to go. Great. Following my plan. And finally, you got to be adaptable. Very important, because things change all the time, as the players know. You get less time to warm up, you get more time to warm up, and I can talk about that more if you'd like. But you got to be flexible with those things. You got to know that whatever's happening, maybe my warm up gets a bit messed up. I'm fine. I can deal with that. I can get into this match and be fine. So you don't want to create a rigidity here where, oh my gosh, I have to have a specific routine that always happens the same way, because you don't have that much control over it. You're not Nadal, where your whole life is planned around your matches. So you're going to have to be He has to be adaptable too. Sometimes you're going to have to be adaptable, be flexible to deal with the things that surprise you, that changes, and know that you can still perform.
Gotcha,
And that's what I
Larry.
got.
And cool. And appreciate that. That was fantastic. As far as the check-ins, like, is that basically just making sure that your planned routine is going as you like it, or is it a check of like how am I feeling, or what's the basis of the check-in?
I think it starts with where am I at, how am I feeling.
Okay.
Maybe the big one is feeling a little flat, or I'm feeling a pretty like hyper and maybe jittery, right? And where am I at in this emotional, physical energy, and knowing where that state is and then where I want to be determines your strategies, right? So if I'm pretty jittery before the match and I'm nervous and I can't get my leg from stop bouncing when I'm in the car or I'm sitting and waiting for my match, okay, probably need a little less energy. Not that you want to have no energy, but you're probably beyond the amount of activation energy you need. So taking some deep breaths, some quiet space, maybe to listen to some slower music that calms you down, maybe have a laugh with someone. Those kinds of things can help you to lower that energy a little bit so you can calm and compose. If you're going in that check-in and you're feeling flat, like, yeah, I'm not even really thinking about my match and I kind of feel tired or lethargic, hey, warning sirens have to go off. Like, this, I might be down a set before I get into this thing. So go do a more vigorous warm up. Go do some dynamic movement stuff. Maybe use shadow stroke to really get yourself engaged. Maybe listen to faster music. So there's some specific things you do based on where you find yourself at your check-in. If it were me, and when I was playing tennis, USTA league tennis, I would check in with myself maybe 30 minutes before. Where am I at? What do I need to do? And I might have a sense already, like I'm getting up in the morning, like I'm feeling a bit lethargic, so got to get up, get moving, get it going, get some faster music on, whatever I need to do to get myself ready to go.
Got it. Thanks, Larry. And as far as the adaptability, I'm sure that you have, different range of players where some, as you kind of mentioned, like if something goes wrong, then they get pretty anxious and things like that. But I know
Yeah.
you've mentioned that we have to be flexible. So for those players who are, the first type where they get kind of rattled, I guess, so to speak, when things don't go properly, like what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, it's about resilience and not fragility, and understanding that things don't have to go your way for you to be successful. You don't have to be feeling perfect. You don't have to have a sunny day with zero wind, or just slightly cloudy so the sun's not in my eyes, or to have the perfect whatever it is string job, or you know. And I think a lot of this comes back to the way you train, the way you practice. And I know, look, I mean, I work with juniors and pros, so we do way more training. But if you are doing training, you're having practices, practice in the wind. Um, when you're a little tired, still go and play, because this teaches you how to deal with a suboptimal state and how to get yourself closer to your optimal state, right? How to deal with those things. So I think it's that. I think it's also being prepared for the things that might come up. When someone doesn't show and now you're thrown into doubles and you were planning on just playing singles, but mentally like, okay, Like, be prepared for anything. Know that you can deal with it. Um, and at the end of the day, and a lot of this advice is what we give to our pros and our juniors, because they're constantly dealing with a changing schedule. Uh, you have to be prepared to extend your pre-match and be okay with that, to stretch it. Maybe there's a space in there where you relax, you kick back because the match before you is going long. And then you just know when the score in that match before you is, uh, when it's time to really start gearing things back up, where I'm going to go move around, maybe do some shadow strokes, maybe listen to music again. Maybe that's when it gets to midway through the second set, right? And I start firing things back up again when it's been a long match or I've been waiting. And then you also need to prepare to shrink your preparation time. So sometimes maybe you arrive late, maybe you're going on before you realize, right? There's typically not, none of these not before times for adult players. So you just got to play when they tell you to play typically. So being able to shrink that preparation, knowing what the most important movements in the warm up are for you, also knowing where you can cut back on things. Maybe you don't need to have the 15-minute stretch. Maybe it's going to get knocked down to 5, and you still are okay with it. Maybe your warm-up's a little shorter, but you still get through the most important things. So when you practice these things and you mentally prepare for them, when the surprises come, you're like, okay, I'm kind of ready for it. I knew this would happen at some point, so no big deal. If you don't mentally prepare for it, then it's a big deal when it shows up. Oh, I can't believe we got to go on the court. I'm not ready. Well, this is going to happen to you if you play tennis. So,
100%, Larry. And I've got one more question for now, because I know we have audience questions. Obviously never me, but what if we have, let's say, like a USC match or a tournament match, and traffic or whatever, we leave late or whatnot, and then we get there like right when the match is going to start, and like for a lot of us, we have like some adrenaline from driving to the match and all that. So there's obviously, do not do this, but if it happens, what should we be doing? And I imagine something on the mental side to at least calm down some.
Yeah, so because that feeling of being rushed is one of the big things that can take away from the performance, right? And I've experienced that in Grand Slams with players when maybe the bus to the site is running behind, or there's a lot of traffic and people are freaking out. So I think that in these cases, when you don't have that much time, do some breathing, calm yourself down, take that time to pause and be like, look, I'm good. I'm here. It's going to be all right. And then maybe again, all of your warm-up's going to be in that warm-up with your opponent. So then focus on moving your feet, exerting yourself, just getting into the flow of hitting the ball, right? And, maybe if you can visualize a little bit the way you want to perform. But if you've done some stuff beforehand, maybe you visualized in the morning, the night before, then that arrival might not have the big effect on you, because mentally you've already done some of your homework. So, but it's not easy for sure. And I don't like to be running behind for things and get, nervous or upset about it. So you really got to be aware of your emotions, remind yourself you're going to be okay, breathe. Maybe in that sense, we like to be optimally ready, but you're going to need a couple games to really get into it. And there is where I'd say, hey, just take care of your serve, right? If you can, just hold your serve, do the best you can. If you get down a break, these matches are long, there's always a chance to get back in it. So, but definitely not the best situation for sure.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Thanks, Larry. So we'll go to some questions and comments. Let's see where we left off. Tom, hi. I just listened to Milan from Shanghai Clutch. He's all in. Yeah, that was definitely a good session there. Raj, Greenville, South Carolina. Awesome. 3-5. Biggest challenge is irrelevant thoughts that have nothing to do with my tennis match. So what do we do there, Larry?
Okay. Well, I think the mistake that a lot of people make, I'm not saying, Raj, you make this mistake, but we try to fight our thoughts. I shouldn't be having that thought. Stop having that thought. And that just gives it more energy. What I would encourage people to do is to accept that you're going to have some irrelevant thoughts. You're thinking about what you're doing later that evening or a work project or whatever. This is normal. Your brain likes to bounce around to different things. So my suggestion would be to accept that monkey brain that likes to fly around and think of different things, and then get it under your control by taking a breath, and then focusing your mind on, okay, this is what it's about. If you're doing those ABCs, right, you wrote in your journal like the 3 goals that you have for the match, you can go back to those 3 things, you can visualize them. But this is disciplining your mind to focus in and to funnel it in. Distraction is normal. All of us are distracted a lot in this crazy world. But being mindful, having that quiet space, and practicing, going into your mental gym every day and spending 5 minutes doing meditation, mindfulness, breathing, visualization is training your mind to focus itself on one singular thing, or into a smaller focus, if that makes sense, to zoom it in. That is a skill. And if you don't practice it, that muscle atrophies. You're not as good at it. Just like if you don't go in the gym and hit the weights. So yes, in the moment, be accepting of those thoughts and really refocus back on what's important, and use your breathing to help you kind of hit that reset button. But if you're practicing that kind of skill every day, mindful breathing, visualizing success, you're going to get pretty good at refocusing away from those irrelevant thoughts. So when they show up, they're really not going to hold that much power over you. Whereas now, maybe you know that they distract you from what you're trying to do and they can affect your performance. So they end up being a bad thing when they show up, versus just, my brain misfiring, no big deal. Boom, zooming in, breath, visualize, self-talk. Here we go. I'm going to focus on moving my feet. I'm going to grunt from the start of the match. I'm going to hit this ball high over the net. Off we go.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Thanks, Larry. Let's see. We've got Jamie per the 3 questions. So 2-5. Can't seem to get bumped despite exclusively playing 3-0. Biggest issue is putting it all together, competing well in matches. So any advice on that? Putting it all together and competing well?
Well, that's a big question, right? Putting it all together. I think you talk to someone who's knowledgeable about tennis, a coach, a teammate, and try to get their feedback on what they see. It seems like maybe you haven't been able to identify, what it is that's keeping you from bringing it all together, right? But I would look in all parts of your game. Physically, are you holding up in these matches? Are you able to move the way you want? And again, I don't know people's conditions and all that stuff, but physically, mentally, are you focused on, again, the ABCs, some strategies? I would focus a lot on tactics here too, typically, because people say like, yeah, I practice well, but then I get in the matches, I don't play the same way. Anxiety, pressure, and decision making. If you're in good shape and you can do the running that's necessary, then how are you dealing with your anxiety, your stress, and these are interrelated? What kind of decisions are you making? So if you can learn how to take your strengths as a player and turn them into advantages. So let's say, Jamie, your forehand's really good, right? Or how are you building points to your forehand? Are you hitting serves that gets more balls to your forehand, right? Or are you making choices that really undermine your strength? Sending balls into the backhand corner right away, and then you're in a backhand cross-court rally. So I'm not going to go deep. I'm not a tennis coach. I work with tennis coaches and players every day. I know enough, but look at the tactics and see if you're working towards your strengths, exposing your opponent's weaknesses, or you're actually exposing yourself. Mirban, I see that often where players don't play in a way that allows them to be successful. They hit the ball too flat. Now, again, there's differences in styles here. We're not talking about pros where everybody plays a lot of spin these days, but most everybody. But nonetheless, if you can do some things that make your opponent uncomfortable and are working towards your strengths, that might be a way to start getting it going in matches. But you really, without knowing more, you got to take a look at all areas of your game and where do you think that, it's falling short, why it's not coming together. So,
Yeah, self-evaluation is key of your strengths and weaknesses for sure. Let's see, more questions here. Oh, good one. Jay, look, my challenge is learning to be competitive instead of cooperative when it matters. I was trained to be nice to the opponent by not really challenging them. Any thoughts
okay.
on that?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's different than the Lauer household where we basically fought every time we played sports as kids. But
Oh,
yeah, we would get
cool.
into
That's
it.
good.
But yeah, it was
Good.
very competitive. But no, that's great. I mean, what great character. But it might not be helping you in the sense of really, what they talk about, like getting dirty and digging in and taking it to your opponent and uh, that kind of thing. And we have to understand that when we do everything ethically within the rules to perform and beat our opponent, we're making them better. And if you were to play me, I would want you to bring your game because
Yeah.
that's going to force me to play better. So I think a lot of times, players think that, okay, I don't want to be, too fired up, or maybe I'm not going to hit certain serves because, maybe it's, not cool. Or again, depending on your level, that matters a lot, what level you're playing. But to be competitive is to say, okay, one way, I'm making my opponent better by really bringing it. And so, if someone says to you like, "Why are you trying so hard?" That's on them, right? Why are you trying? And I've had people say that to me, like, "Well, I have a standard of the way I want to play, and either you bring it or you don't, and that's on you." So, and I know that seems a bit rough, but that's what I believe. I think that the other thing is that you're also competing with yourself, and so being competitive can be, okay, I want to try and hit 60% of my first serves in this match. I want to raise my level, so that can get the juices flowing, right? Where you're competing with yourself, so setting goals to perform. But at the end of the day, creating positive rivalries, ones where you really are pushing other people to be better by you being your best, and having fun with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think being competitive is an awesome thing. Obviously, you need to be cooperative often, but being competitive, trying to beat someone, is part of life. And there's times to do that. Unfortunately, tennis is a place where we can do that in a good way. Obviously, we do it with respect. We do it with sportsmanship. But it's a good thing, I think, to be competitive. So you have to change your mindset about it. Set some competitive goals. Play competitive games in practice. Like play games where, okay, we're playing a 4-point tiebreak. Here we go. It's on. And you know what? If you lose, you buy the other person lunch. You buy them dinner. Whoa, okay, that might get the juices flowing. So there's things you can do to really encourage this part of yourself to come out.
I really love that, especially the point about how, by being more competitive, you're helping the other person, get the most out of their game as well. I mean, when I play tournaments and lose, that's when I'm learning the most,
Mm-hmm.
On average. So, yeah, great stuff there. Thanks for the question. Let's see what else we have here.
Great questions so
Uh,
far.
yeah, for sure. The timeless mantra, wherever you are, be there. About presence. Yep. 100%.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Good
Very good
reminder
one.
there.
Yeah. Let's see. A comment. We're excited about Summit and how improving. My number one struggle is I want to win championships, have fun, and enjoy. Yes. I'm sure you will if you keep improving and putting to practice what you learn about, including today with Larry. Jay, look, I'm a very cold competitor. If I could be considered one, and calm by that measure. All right. That's good. It's good you know yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good. I mean, again, people demonstrate their energy in different ways. Some exhibit it outwardly a lot. Others they have a lot of passion on the inside, but they're not showing it. As long as you're in control of your responses to what's happening, where you're making good choices, you're making decisions, you're able to think clearly about what you're trying to do on court and give that good effort. You know, some can look very cold and meticulous, and others are, fiery and look spontaneous, but there's a method to that madness. So
Yeah, great stuff. Jamie, my improving my number one struggle would be is I'd like to see how good I can really get. So that's a good comment. How do you deal with kind of maximizing potential, like on the mental side? Like any thoughts on that?
yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think, trying to kind of situate myself here with the audience, because when we work with juniors, we look at all parts of their mental game, right? And identify strengths that they have and areas we want to improve. And then we get them maybe at 12, 13 years old, and we just start teaching in the classroom, taking it to court, giving them feedback on court, doing mental drills on court, and building up their skill sets and their perspectives and how they perform in matches. So I would say, there are things out there that you can take. There's mental toughness questionnaires. There's uh, other questionnaires out there, surveys. You can do essentially what they call a performance profile. We used to do this a lot, where we'd say, okay, we'd have basically, if you took a dartboard, right, and we'd say, okay, on the outside, each one of those pieces or those sections of that dartboard or that piece of pie, what are the qualities mentally that one would need to perform at a high level? Confidence, composure, toughness, determination, resilience, right? Aggressiveness, competitiveness, whatever you think those qualities are. The other way we do it is say, okay, take your favorite player and what qualities do they demonstrate? Put them on the outside of that, each piece of that pie and that pizza pie or dartboard, each section. And then take a good hard look at yourself and rate yourself on how you're doing on those, because at the center, that bullseye, if that's worth 1 point and 10 is worth, is the best, and that's at the outer edge, how would you score on confidence, right? What score would you give yourself? Is that something that you're pretty strong at, or is that something you need to work on? And you can go through your game and your mental game and look at different characteristics and skills and see how you're doing. You could also, again, always great to have someone else give you feedback. So you have a coach that you work with do it, or a close friend who you play with help you fill it out as well. That might give you some feedback. And then you identify. I think it's important to identify your strengths and try to find ways to maintain and improve those or use those more. And then find those areas that need improvement. And then there's a ton of information out there, of course. There's many good books. Jim Lair's books are great. Obviously, if you're looking for tennis-specific things, we have our USTA Mental Skills and Drills Handbook that I was the lead editor on. We have a lot of mental skills drills in there. And also in our Compete Like a Champion podcast that we're doing, we're now going through certain drills and talking about how to work on the mental side of serving or returning. And we're going to get into returning pretty soon. So there's things out there, that you can look at to help you identify, where your challenges are, and then start to come up with a plan. So
Excellent. And yeah, I just put in the Compete Like a Champion podcast link. That's actually a link to Apple Podcasts, but I mean, if you just search for the podcast,
yep.
You'll find it on all platforms, I assume, right?
Yep,
So,
it's out there.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, great work on that, by the way. So let's see. So Jayla, kind of a similar question, I suppose, but how can one transition from cooperative friendly play to competition where you must take advantage of any advantages and mistakes by the opponent? So I don't know if you had any additional thoughts, but
yeah. Jay Look is on this topic. So I would say, again, as long as you're aware of the goals in the practice, so let's say you're in practice and maybe you're trying to get 30 in a row and you have to cooperate in that drill, and then you progress to a baseline game. To me, knowing the purpose of the drill will tell you if you're supposed to be competitive or cooperative. And also, to me, in a good practice, you obviously, it depends on what the coach wants to work on, but often you're going to go from more cooperative work to competitive work. where now you're putting it into point play. You're putting in situations where you are trying to do something to expose your opponent, to set yourself up. So, I mean, that's how I would look at it. If we're working on things, it's more cooperative. I'm sure there's still times in point play where it is a lot of cooperation. Maybe if you're playing only on one side or whatever, but nonetheless, I think that it's important to realize what the goal of the drill of the game is, and allowing that to dictate just how competitive you're going to be. So,
Yeah, great stuff. So Christopher has a question about related to overload, which I can remember you had simple on the slide there. But
yes.
when playing a match, how many areas of my game should I focus on?
Okay. I'm going to give you a couple different answers here. In terms of like our short-term memory, we can hold 7 plus or minus 2 things right
Hmm.
here at the front of our brains and pay attention to them. But that might not be optimal for performance in a tennis match. So I would suggest, I've talked about those ABCs. Uh, there's a couple things that are almost like turnkeys for the rest of your game. That's how you want to think about it. What are the things that if I do them, other things happen automatically?
Mm,
So if I move my feet and I'm physical, probably a lot to do with like my strokes is going to fall into place if I have good technique, right? And so I'm looking for those turnkeys. What are the things that are going to open up the other things without me even thinking about them? The other way to look at this, Christopher, is that you have strengths, things that you've mastered potentially in your game. Those aren't things you need to hold on to, right? So if your forehand is something that you've mastered, you can hit it in the dark. You can hit any kind of ball you want. There's really no need to think about it. Now you're just looking to use it tactically, right? I'm just thinking about how to use this weapon to my advantage. So I would keep it down to 2 or 3 things that you think are critical. One of them might be something that you're working on, and so therefore it's something you're going to try and work on during your match, and the other 2 might be things that are key things that when you do them you're successful, maybe like your strengths. That's how I would answer that question. It's a tough one because focus, you can only focus on one thing at a time, but our brains are really good at jumping from thing to thing to thing. And we can
yeah.
do that to a point, but you still have to focus on the ball. And if you get caught up on thinking of too many things, you lose track of this yellow ball, and that's where your focus has to be when you start to point.
Thanks, there. Yeah, that quote about doing the one thing that unlocks the others. I'm trying to remember what book that's from. I'd read that,
I don't
and I know
remember.
that Tim Ferriss had mentioned that on his podcast. But yeah, that's a great principle there. Um, let's see, Jamie. It's always harder to control certain things playing away matches, including tournaments, than home matches, like
Mm,
space to step away or early access to courts for a warm up. So, any thoughts on that? And you talked about adjustability a bit.
yeah. Yeah, that I understand because yeah, you may not really get a chance to warm up the way you want to. Depending on how serious you are, you can plan for this, right? Maybe you hit at your home site if you can get a court, and then go to the away site. That might be a way to handle that, or find someplace close where you can hit for 20 minutes and then go to your match. But if that's not possible, because that's going an extra couple steps. You know what I mean when we talk about preparation for a match, um, you do the best you can, right? You make the most of the situation because it is what it is. It's not going to change, right? So I try. Maybe I go outside and I do some of my warm up stuff where there is some space in the parking lot or a grassy space beside the courts, right? If I'm in a club, or off to the side if I'm at outdoor courts. So I'm gonna make the most of it. We actually, we deal with this a lot at what I'd say like futures tournaments, small pro tournaments, where they might not have they don't have all the amenities that a challenger or ATP WTA event has. So people play. So I don't have a locker room to go and listen to my music and visualize. Well, there's a tree over.
Oh, Larry? Larry, you there? I think we might have lost Larry, but no worries. He can join in. I'll have to shoot him a message. If you don't see Larry, can you give me a message or shoot a message down in the comments? Yeah, sorry guys. It looks like we may have lost him. Let me shoot him a quick message here. Let's see. Sorry guys. As always, there'll be some sort of technical difficulty here and there. Hey, Larry. Oh, here we go. Sweet. Okay, I think we got him back. Hey, Larry.
Yeah, momentary issue there. I don't know what happened. So,
all good.
Where did I
sorry. So, well, you were in the middle of answering Jamie's question. I'm trying to remember exactly when that was, but
I'll summarize that.
Yeah.
You make the best of the situation and find ways to adapt versus complaining about it, right? Because if we complain about it, then it's not going to make us ready, right? And we're probably bringing down our teammates as well as we do that. So make the most of the situation, find another space. If you can't have the typical warm-up that you would like to have, you can insert things like visualization or shadow strokes instead, and really take advantage of your match warm-up where you're really moving your feet, hitting the ball, accelerating, and just have a positive outlook, knowing, and a resilient one, that I can do this no matter what. I can deal with it.
Yeah, that mindset is key. Good stuff. Jay, look, can you warm up off court in different ways? Definitely. What have you seen?
I've seen so many different things. Some of the things that I've found to be pretty interesting and I think useful. Coaches are with their players and they're tossing balls to them and they're having to catch them and move small movements, right? So I think that's working on their vision. That's working on anticipating and reactions and getting to the ball. So I like that one a lot. I also love to see, when players are, getting physical in the dynamic warm up. They're moving. They're, just being explosive. A few sprints, obviously, after you're ready to warm up the body. Those are ways. To me, it's worked for me, so I know that this can work. And the shadow strokes, where you find your own space, you have your racket, you imagine you're hitting the ball, forehands, backhands, you're moving your feet. You don't even have to make it look like a point where you're moving 10 feet to this side, 5 feet. It can be right in a small space, but just the fact you're bouncing on your toes, you're hitting, that can be a nice way to really start to dial in. I remember Justine Ennen doing that before the Wimbledon final. So, I felt if Ennen can do it and it works, then I can do it, because she's way better than me and I need to do it if she's doing it. So
yeah, definitely a lot of ways to exercise off court and warm up.
Sure.
Let's see. Bruce, can you discuss coffee use / avoidance pre-match, time of day of match, peak and duration of caffeine effects on tennis players? So I know you have a lot of accolades, but I forget if you're a nutritionist or not, or dietitian. But
yeah.
I mean, what have you seen, and what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I'm not going to get too much into details of that, because that's going outside my strike zone a little bit, and I haven't looked at that research in a while. But my general sense is to try and it's just to stay away from those things. One, because we can get dehydrated, especially if it's in a hot environment or human environment. I know that adults use caffeine quite a bit, coffee to as a stimulant to get themselves going. I would encourage drinking a lot of water or things like with electrolytes in them, sports drinks, but mostly water. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with that. I typically find that coffee use, you really don't see players using that stuff. They have drinks that are specifically designed for them, for their needs, for their body, and you just don't. They might have something in the morning because they want that pickup, But in terms of a pre-match, no, it's not something that I would see regularly.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, Larry. Excellent presentation. We're enjoying and learning a lot. Many thanks for your efforts. No
Thank
problem,
you.
Artie. Great to hear that. Guido Mando, hello from London, UK. Which football team do you support? I'm curious. Let me know. But I always play worse, get nervous when people are watching. Any tips for that?
Yeah, that's a common phenomenon, and it's a matter of focus, right? Because the focus is on outside, and when we start focusing on other people, it brings judgment into mind, right? How do I look as a player? Am I playing well? Do they think that I'm a terrible player, that I can't hit a serve or I can't return? So we start judging ourselves, become very self-conscious, which is going to be detrimental to performance, as you know. My suggestion is number one is to discipline your eyes. And it's actually something we practice with our juniors a lot. Where do your eyes go when you're on the court? Eyes go to your strings between points or to a back point in the fence. So you might pick out a spot in a fence or the wall that you're looking at. If you watch Djokovic between points, his eyes don't wander around. They're here at his strings and then they're up at the court. So number one, discipline your eyes, because then you can remove some of the distraction of seeing people watching you. Obviously, there's still the auditory, sounds as well, and some of you can't avoid when you're having those thoughts. So then try to look at the crowd in a different way. Reframe it in your mind, because you might be worried about what they think about you as a player. Reframe it to either A, they're here, and honestly, in 30 seconds, they're not even going to remember that I was playing tennis. So, and they actually probably on their phones, so they're not paying attention to me anyway. And we know that most people are so caught up in their own stuff, they don't even realize you're there. So, you can kind of take it to that extent, or you can try to think about yourself as, okay, like people are here watching. All right, I'm going to go show them what I can do and take that positive slant to it. I'm going to show them how I can play and what I can do. But it's a very common thing. And at the end of the day, if you can ultimately discipline the mind where you have between port routines and you just control your eyes, your vision, go to your strings, go to the back fence, take a deep breath to quiet the mind. This we talked about the mindful breathing earlier, right? To quiet the mind, exercise that. Use mindful breathing, mindfulness a lot for meditation as a way to practice quieting your mind. And then when you get in matches, it's not so difficult. Use the breathing to quiet your mind and then insert the focus you want to have. Okay? Focusing on the task at hand. All right, I'm going body serve and I'm looking to move in and take a ball early. When you get really immersed and engaged with the strategy of the match, which to me is so fun, then the other things start to fall off. Focus on your fans, your entourage, your TMZ, whomever it is following you around. You stop focusing on them. You start playing tennis, and then those thoughts will intrude sometimes. Get into your routines, accept your thoughts, breathe, quiet the mind, go to the focus you want to have, the task at hand, the strategy.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
Artie, I'm a good player, but when I make a mistake, I keep thinking about that. How can I solve this issue? Thanks.
Well, RD, stop making mistakes. It's easy, man. That was a joke, by the way. This is like the number one thing that we talk about it honestly at the training center, which is funny because it's the same for everyone, right? Mistakes. I missed the ball. Well, I think first of all is an acceptance that no matter what you do, sometimes you're going to miss. If Roger Federer, who we might think is the best ball striker to ever live, can miss shots, I certainly am going to miss some shots. So there needs to be a level of acceptance that even though you're a very good player, you're going to make mistakes. I need to accept those. Also think about the fact that when you're playing a good competitor, you're probably going to make more mistakes. Know the differences between your forced errors and your unforced errors. And hopefully you know the difference. The forced are ones that they forced you and you're in a tough position and, you know, you missed it. But that's really, they caused that to happen. Unforced is when it's a shot you typically think you would make and you miss it. Those are two different kinds of errors, by the way. So know that, and also know that you're still going to make some of those errors. It's normal, normalize it. And the most important thing is you have a job to do, and that's to be ready to play the next point. So when you get in between points, I mentioned in answering the previous question a way to refocus from the crowd. You can do a similar thing here from your mistakes, okay? But there's also a visual way to do this, and that is if you're getting stuck on that mistake, see that mistake in your mind again. So I'm seeing a forehand go in the net. All right, I'm already thinking about it, so I see it one more time. There it is, and it's really frustrating. Then I erase it in my mind. So I imagine, taking the marker board and making it white, or maybe I'm making a chalkboard and making it black, or maybe, now in these tech-heavy days, I'm swiping it away, right? Whatever works for you. And then insert the visual you want to have. Imagine hitting that shot with a better trajectory over the net. And that is a way to kind of move on. We call it see, erase, replace, by the way. So you can do see, erase, replace. You can do something that I mentioned earlier that's more of a breathing and thought strategy, which is your almost like a breathe and believe. Take a breath, quiet the mind, focus on something you believe in, right? It kind of depends on you. You can practice both and see what you like more.
Love that. Thank you for that, Larry. Great question. I think I did skip one. Brenda, some matches I seem to be in a funk, not connected with the ball, not moving well. I try to move my feet, focus on the ball, but the harder I get, the worse it gets. Any advice on getting out of that funk?
Yeah, well, that's what we kind of call like our red light situation when we're talking about with the pros. Green light, you're flowing, you're good, you're moving forward. Not necessarily in the zone, you might be, but things are going well. Yellow light is a caution point where, okay, I'm starting to make mistakes. I'm getting nervous. I'm distracted. I'm emotional. I'm getting a little bit outside of my optimal zone. Do your routines, get yourself back in the green. But red is when you're not performing well, where you feel disconnected to the ball. And again, think of it, it's a matter of focus, right? And your focus is being drawn away probably from the ball to how poorly you're doing or how you're not doing well. So that's just exacerbating the situation. My suggestion on this, I know you mentioned here in the question that you try to move your feet and focus on the ball and it just gets worse. Well, maybe we take a tip from the old inner game of tennis here. Try to get in the flow. If people have read that book, that bounce hit strategy, or sometimes we talk about 1-2, ball hits your side of the court, think bounce, you hit it, think hit. Try to release a lot of the thinking and just focus on playing the point. You know what, like Brenda, when you play music at practice and you just kind of get in the flow, that's because you're not thinking as much. And so maybe, I'm not saying this is the absolute solution because I don't fully know your situation. Maybe because you're trying so hard, actually focusing less on it and just having that mantra, bounce it, or 1-2, 1-2, can help you to release a lot of this and just get in focus and rhythm with the ball. Another option is just your breathing and grunting, right? So as the ball is coming, breathe in, make contact. You can breathe out or a little grunt. Just get into that rhythm. That's why a lot of players do it. I know a lot of other people hate the grunting that's going on in the program. In the pro game, I totally understand that. But I understand what they're trying to do is they're actually creating a rhythm. They're creating a flow, something to focus on too. So you can use that as well as a way to get your focus off of trying harder and then things not working for you to just finding a rhythm and being looser and playing.
Got it. Love it. Thanks. Let's see. Love this one. Christopher, hey guys, practice gratitude. You're healthy. You have the opportunity and the ability to compete. Enjoy the experience. That works a lot for me, actually. Sometimes I'm not playing so well, and I think about how grateful I am for being able to play when others are, unfortunately suffering or having other, they don't have opportunities to play. So, I mean, that's a real good one. Yeah. I mean,
That's
do you use that
yeah.
as well?
Oh,
Yeah.
personally, with the athletes and coaches I work with all the time, it's a big part of our mental practice. To be honest, I find that gratitude is a tremendous way to move our thoughts off of the outcome. And kind of what you mentioned there, in some ways, I really want to go and play well, and I want to win. But man, I'm just happy to be able to go out and compete, right? How cool is it that I'm
Yeah.
healthy, that I can do this? And that has a way of switching off a lot of those needs for outcomes, the things you don't have total control over, and putting the focus back on the joy of competing, the joy of being out there and hitting the ball. So practicing gratitude is great, as Christopher was saying, for your health, because honestly, it's working on your stress levels, your anxiety. It's lowering those things, making you feel more at ease. Um, that's tremendous. Um, I would say for anyone, especially like if you're in a high stress job, taking multiple times a day where you have quiet time where you can practice gratitude, maybe going for a walk in the woods, walk in your neighborhood. Those are great for your well-being. Getting up and moving as well. But as we come back to what the purpose of this summit is, tennis, gratitude is tremendous. So just being thankful, appreciative of the opportunity to play with somebody else oftentimes washes away a lot of the concerns. It's not a foolproof strategy, but it's pretty darn good. You still got to do some of the other things like focus on ABCs that we mentioned earlier, or how you're going to compete, and just letting that be what's most important to you, if that's what you want. Using routines like breathing and then focusing on a strategy for the next point is a way to keep your focus during the match. The gratitude is an absolute that's a big hit for me, and something that everyone can use in practice. So in different
Gotcha.
ways too. It can be prayer. It can be writing things that you're grateful about. It can be speaking it to someone else. There's different ways to experience gratitude. So thanking someone
100%.
at the tournament, right? So
Yeah, 100%. Educator as a book recommendation, The Miracle of Mindfulness.
okay, I haven't read
Nice
that
one.
one, Educator. So we'll look at
Yeah,
that.
by Thich Nhat Hanh, I think. Interesting.
Hmm. Yep.
Let's see. Let's see. So, Jay, look, how would you deal with away courts or surface types that are unfamiliar?
Mm. Yeah, that's it's a great question. It's something that that our pros and juniors spend a lot of time working on. Obviously, they have the wherewithal to travel and be able to play on other surfaces. Nonetheless, it is an aspect of something to consider for the recreational player, for the adult player. And I think, maybe build in some times where you take a little road trip and you play on a surface you're unfamiliar with and have some fun with and get a feel for it, right? Because typically we don't think about this till it's the day before or the day of, and we're like, oh crap, now I got to go play and hate that surface, or I have no idea how to play on it. So maybe go earlier and just get a hit on it, get a feel for it. Um, that's probably going to be the best thing you can do. Get there early and try to maybe see if you can get on a court earlier and extend your hit a little bit, so you can come comfortable with the movement on the surface, the way the ball is bouncing. Um, you know, I know for example, and again, this is might be apples and oranges, but our pros, if they're going to play in altitude, they're going to go a couple days earlier to experience the altitude and get comfortable with the way the ball is carrying through the air and what they have to do. So find a way, and if you can't, then guess what? Focus on what you can control. Your game, what makes you successful. Be accepting of the things that don't go your way. Your acceptance is probably going to have to be pretty strong on that day, because you might get some bounces you don't like. It might be a lot of reasons to complain and doubt yourself, and that's where your mental game has to be sharp. So be prepared to let the things that don't go your way kind of slide off your back through acceptance, through being non-judgmental, you practicing mindfulness, and also trusting in your strengths, and problem solving, that you can find a way. So, But it's obviously a good learning situation. So at the end of the day, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn a lot about your game, and that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, for sure, Larry. Thanks for that. Bruce, can you comment if you know if there's any role for the use of a backboard for pre-match preparation? So I know it's not on the mental side, I guess, but I mean, I would think it could be a useful tool. Any thoughts on that, Larry?
Yeah, look, first of all, it's better than nothing, right? So if you don't
Yeah.
have someone to hit with, use a backboard. Um, it could be a great way, again, kind of like the coach that's throwing balls to the player. Could be a great way to get yourself loose and your eyes engaged with the ball and moving quickly. So I like that idea. It's obviously not the way that you play tennis. So you're going to want to, if you can, get a hit with somebody else. But I mean, I think a backboard could certainly play a role in helping you warm up, get ready.
I agree. Let's see, Proc. What is your mind talk like when you're trying to calm down before a match, or when your shots are not going well during a match? Do you have certain phrases that you say to yourself? It's a good one.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Those are like that's secretive. Should I give those away? I don't. I'll
You're
give
gonna
them
have
to
to
Proc.
charge for that.
Yeah, right. I'll give those to you today. So no, I'm just joking.
Oh, thank.
Yeah, so I think look, everybody's different. Um, actually, a couple months ago, some of our juniors, we had a team meeting about this. What are phrases that really resonate within you that have meaning to you? Like for me, this whole sort of era of mindfulness, it is what it is a phrase that has helped me. Now, some people are like, when they hear that, other people love it. So when I say focus on the process, some people want to gag, and other people are like, that is like brilliant, and everything in between. So they're gonna be dependent on what resonates with you. But um, what we said earlier about gratitude is a big part of this. And being appreciative for the opportunity to play, to be healthy is a way to help you calm down. Um, when things aren't going your way, or to calm down, using breathing, you know, actually like to simplify all the talk, maybe have less noise. Honestly, I'm not trying to talk myself as much through it as I'm trying to breathe and quiet the mind and then focus it on one or two things, right? Like for all the noise that's going on, the things are not going my way. If I get physical and I move my feet and I make this a long match, things are going to get good for me. And so, again, being able to get back to this simple, back to the important things that really work for you, your strengths, the things you've worked on, is extremely important. Certain phrases, I've seen, Mirwan, I'm seeing players posting like have you seen them lately on Twitter or Instagram on their notebook pages, right? The pro players
Yeah.
like Raducanu had hers out after the U.S. Open, and recently, who was it? That was the gymnast Suni Lee posted hers.
Uh,
And we talk about that with the players, like, hey, look at what these other great performers are thinking about or want to
yeah.
think about during, things like,
Murray.
yeah. So control what you can control, right? For some people, that's like at the top of the mountain. I'm at another plane of existence. It's everything, and other people are like, that's just like an overused statement. So find what works for you. Is what it is. Control what you can control. Focus on the process. Um, I remember playing and being like, look, it's not about getting broken. It's about bouncing back, right? And one of the key things we always talk about is it's not about what goes wrong. It's about how you respond to it. And that one, to me, I love that one,
Yeah.
because
Really
everybody is going to make mistakes. But if you remember that, it's about the response. And the final thing, because I know this is almost getting like just throwing stuff at the wall, but playing one shot at a time. You're like, yeah, no duh, Larry. Everybody talks about that. But talking to yourself in a way where if you miss your shot, that's one ball. That's one ball. That's it. I'm good.
Yeah.
That's 1 point. And remembering that, you might play 120 points, 100 points in your match, One ball is not going to kill you. Now, one ball that costs you 4 points might, because you're still focused on the miss. So remember what your most important job is, and that is to refocus and be ready to play the next one. One ball is it.
One ball at a time. Yep. Let's see. Educator, monkey mind. Yes, that is what a lot of us have.
For sure.
Just got to refocus.
Gary.
Yes. How do you deal with a play? Oh, you know Gary or?
No, I don't know. Do
okay.
I know you, Gary? I'm trying to remember now. Sorry, man. I might. But you caught me off guard with this question.
Oh, that's why you said, oh, okay. I thought maybe you like knew him or something. Yeah. As you saw, how do you deal with a player who makes questionable line calls?
Yeah, see, we've been talking about this a lot in our USTA webinars with Dr. Sean Foltz-Emmons and Dr. Carl Davies about just some of the tournament stuff and how to make it an enjoyable experience. But how do you deal with a player who makes questionable line calls? Well, to me, number one, we have to remember that we might not always see it correctly. So, we got to give people the benefit of the doubt. That's number one. Because we realize that even when the pros have had the opportunity to replay points, they typically were wrong when they challenged. I know there was a lot of times that there was using it to get extra time, or they were just taking a shot in the dark because they had 2 left or whatever. But they weren't very good at overturning the officials. So often what we see is not what's actually going on. Just remember that. But number two, if you're convinced that their line calls are not good and it's working against you, then I would say take that as a source of empowerment. And what I mean by that is, oh, okay, you have to do that to beat me. Obviously, you can't deal with my game. So I'm going to bring you more of my game. Because what happens is we get caught up on the calls. We start thinking about that instead of playing the ball, playing our game. We get worse because of it. And that's exactly what shouldn't happen, right? We don't want that to happen. We want to just move on. So if I can empower myself to play my game more, to be more determined to play my game, that's how I want to look at it. Dealing with players who make questionable line calls, obviously if it's becoming a lot of drama and an issue, if you do have an official there, you can call for an official like at a tournament. But I think the one thing, and I haven't always been great at this when I was younger, so I'm trying to give you advice that I also give myself. And that is, the way you demonstrate your respect for them and for the game and for yourself by being calm and cool and collected and say, are you sure about that? Where was it? Okay. And then moving on. One thing I would never do for getting angry in the court, I wouldn't cheat people back. And I wouldn't get into that if I were you, because that's just like an arms race, because now you cheat, they think you're cheating them, they're going to cheat you bigger, and it just becomes ridiculous. And it's not tennis anymore. It's no fun for anyone. So to me, take the high road as best as you can. Focus on your game. Maybe you move your targets in a little bit. That's something that you can do tactically so that it's not so close and they're not going to make those calls against you as easily. But, without going to the extent of calling them out and starting a fight, I think there's other things you can do. Keep it respectful.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, Tom, can you put in the USA link to the questionnaire self-assessment you alluded to, i.e. mental prep, also repeat ABC specifics? Yeah. Do you know the link off the top of your head? I was trying to find it, but I didn't quite find the worksheet.
Oh, yeah. So let me try and snag that real quick. So as we're talking here, but that worksheet's it's a good one because, and it's based on the old work by sports psychologist Terry Orlick. If you pick up the book In Pursuit of Excellence, which is one of the all-time great books, I love that book. But you being able just to understand what's happening to you during the match, learn from yourself, and I think this questionnaire goes a great way towards helping you identify the questions to ask, and then you reflect on it. Then you spend some time thinking about what it is that that you're doing well and what it is that you're not in these matches. This should take you to the page and then there's a link on that page for that questionnaire. So just so you know, but that
Great.
link there will take you to the website, where then when you get there, you'll see actually a picture of Ernesto Escobedo, and in
Nice.
our article, and you go about halfway down, and it'll say go here for the worksheet. So, and I'll take you to another page.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thanks. And then let's see. So a second part to this question, it was I also repeat ABC specifics.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, the ABC. So that's just a way of drawing your attention to the things that you can control. Because if we focus on what we control, we have less anxiety, we have less doubt and worry, and we become more planful, more intentional in the way we play. So you want to focus in on the things that you're going to do to play well, instead of I have to win, I have to break here, I have to hold serve. It's like, well, yeah, I want those things, and that's great, but what I'm going to focus on is, could be something like going up for the ball on my serve. It could be moving my feet. It could be getting to the net. It could be looking to take time and space away from my opponent, moving forward, right? It could be many things. Trying to move all the points to my forehand because that's my weapon, right? Whatever, things are going to help you to be successful in the match. These are like these little reminders, right? And so when we start to focus on them, we start to focus on our strategy and what we control. We start to worry less about the outcomes and also how we feel, right? So it becomes less about, gosh, I need to feel good when I hit the ball. This needs to be right, to, all right, I might not be feeling well, but I can send that ball there and force my opponent off that high cross court to hit one short to me, and I'm going to step in, I'm going to hit the open court. And that kind of stuff, I think, helps you get to another level, because it becomes less about feeling good and technique to strategy and playing chess. And that, every one of you can do, because you play tennis, you can study the game and you can learn about it, right? You might not have a booming forehand, but you can find ways in the game to set yourself up for success. And that's what that is. What are the three things that you control, process goals, how you're going to play, how you're going to compete, that are going to make you successful, and focus most of your attention on that. So hopefully that helps, Tom.
Excellent. Thank you, Larry. Let's see. Tom, thank you. So the book I was thinking of was The One Thing, with Jay Papasan, or the author,
yes.
Jay Papasan and Gary Keller. That's a real good book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so great stuff. Thank you, Tom. Let's see. Did I get to this one? Yeah, I think we did, right? Question live calls.
Yes.
Yeah, we did that. Good. Christopher, do you recommend self-talk during competition?
Yeah, I do, but in very limited ways. One guideline is to go, you don't want to have run-on sentences. You want to have very focused, almost bullet points, right? In a very objective way, right? So I hit that in the net versus, okay, I must be the worst player on the planet because I work on this every day, and then I come to the match and I hit it in the net, and here it goes again, and I don't know why I spend the money and spend the time, and before you know it, you have to play the next point. Discipline the mind. There is some self-talk that has to go on, that is going to go on. So you want to actually determine what that is on purpose, like I mentioned with the ABCs, right? Like the formula is, you play the point, you respond to the point, right? You're going to have thoughts about that point. Okay, I'm going to do my breathing to kind of let that point go, accept that point, and then I'm going to focus my mind on my ABCs, my plan. I might be thinking about making my opponent move, so I'm going to try to hit the ball more towards the outer thirds of the court. Great, I've got a strategy. That's what I'm focused on. And that's important because, in terms we talk about the quiet mind being able to focus, being able to create a commitment between points allows your mind to quiet. Because we always think about, the hat and the pulling on the shorts and all the things that players do to draw their attention away from whatever's going on. But the most powerful thing I find is that commitment to what you're about to do. And you think about it this way: if you're going to go to dinner, right? And you're hungry, and your mind's going through the pages of, okay, which restaurants do I want to go to? What do I like? How much do I want to spend? What part of town do I want to go to? On and on and on and on. And then you pick a restaurant. And then all the thinking stops, usually, right? You're no longer going through all the different restaurants you want to go to. You pick the restaurant. I'm done. I'm done with all that thinking. You committed to a restaurant. You set the reservation. So then there's no more need to think about it. Think about your point play the same way. There's a lot of different thoughts that we're having, but if we can focus on a commitment, and this goes back to the one thing and the ABCs that we've been kicking around here for the last hour and a half, if I go to that thing that I'm going to commit to, all right, this ball's going wide on the serve, slicing it wide. Right. Then my mind can quiet down because I've made a commitment. I can go to the line, do my rituals, bounce the ball so many times, move my hat, do whatever I need to do, bounce around before I return. It's helping you to go from between points, you go internal, right? You start thinking more. And we want to keep it simple, as I talked about, and you want to be able to move that to the external focus. How do I do that? Well, make a commitment to a plan that helps your mind quiet down. So then you do these little rituals at the end of your routine that's drawing your focus to the external. Moving from in here to out there, which has to happen 100 times, 120 times during a match. And so we have to be really great at switching that focus, moving it outside of ourselves, committing to a plan in a very simple way, ones that we practice, ones that we visualize before the match, we wrote in our journal, has a way of helping us quiet the mind.
Love that. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, and there's finally like self-talk. Encouraging things are always helpful. Words of acceptance or non-judgmentality. I made a mistake. Yeah, it is what it is. Everybody makes mistakes. Time to move on. So we'll practice those kind of things in our self-talk, but you have to be disciplined with it. And again, why we do that is because if we don't give the brain a way to focus, it'll go where it wants to. And typically under pressure to what's the most uncomfortable. So that's why I need to give it simple places to go to.
Very powerful. Excellent. Let's see. So interesting one. Any tips for night tennis and not being able to see the ball clearly due to poor lighting? So is there any sort of mental game aspect to this that maybe we could riff off of, or
should have my wife come on here. She's an optometrist. She could give us some advice.
Oh,
but,
cool.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit outside my strike zone, but I'll take the psychological part of that. And that is, my tips would be play more at night. So you get comfortable with playing at night. And when, oftentimes we create these stories, these narratives in our mind that I can't do something or I'm going to play poorly because of this. You have to change that story, that narrative in your mind. So go practice under that lighting. Really work on, seeing the ball, right? Because a lot of it might just be stress due to the fact you're worried that you're not going to play well. So quiet the mind, use a lot of techniques we've talked about here today, and get the eyes focused on the ball. Try to see the number on the ball, the writing, really try to lock in. You'll see Novak go like this and open the eyes. How much that helps, I don't know, but maybe there's something to that. To me, I can talk about the psychological side, and that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. Let's see. A couple comments and another question. I think shadow strokes are better than backboards. Fair. Whatever works better for you. Shadow strokes are great though, 100%. Let's see. James Stan says fail again, fail better.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've done that a lot, James. So I'm glad you agree.
Me too.
Yeah, right. Isn't that the way of things?
Yeah, that's the way. Fail and learn. Gary, how do you deal with a player who doesn't give you time to get set before they serve? Is there an umpire around?
Yeah, right. So Gary, you just keep taking me these other directions. I love it. So now it's about between points. So, but it's all preparation, right? I mean, it's preparation for the point. So, how do you deal with that? Well, obviously we're playing at the server's pace, but you should have the opportunity to be able to take a moment to recover So, there is this part of it. They shouldn't be quick serving you, right? Or playing that fast. So you should be able to have a moment. To me, I can only speak to my experience with this with the players. And that is what we've decided to do when players are serving fast and we're returning. We're going to try and slow things down by going for almost like a walk behind the baseline, almost like in a moon shape, like a half circle. So we're not going to walk straight across the baseline to the other side because that just encourages that other player to play fast. So we're going to go behind, but we're going to keep moving because, then if you do have an umpire and official, they're like, well, the person's getting ready. They're coming over. So they're probably not going to ding you on that. I think that where you get dinged sometimes is when you stop and you're toweling off which to me, is all good and do it if you need it. But that's sometimes where the server gets a bit upset because you're slowing it down, right? So you want to be able to do what you need to be able to do for the most part as you move. So if you can take a breath, think about your strategy, maybe slow down a bit as you take that breath, but you're kind of doing that half circle. So it looks like you're playing at their pace, but you might be slowing it down 2 or 3 seconds, 5 seconds. So, it is, we always talk about the battle for the control of the court during the points, but Rafael Nadal has made it very clear there's a battle for the control of between points as well, the pace at which the match is played. And he owns that. You play it usually at his pace, the way he wants to be played. And so there is a bit of a tug of war that happens between players and how fast or how slow it's going to be played. Just try to do that respectfully, and I think the way I mentioned it here can be a way to do that. And I think it's okay to hold up your hand if you're not ready. You just don't want to be doing that all the time.
Yeah, that's a great point about the battle in between points. I haven't really thought about that. Good stuff, Larry. So I just want to ask you as well, just to summarize, I guess, in a way, but more of an action step question. Like, after watching, the presentation, which was fantastic, and then also listening to all these, all your answers from these fantastic questions, like what one action step would you have us do next to start preparing better for our matches?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I honestly, would start. Maybe you're filling out that worksheet that we sent the link for to understand how you're preparing, create greater awareness around your preparation, and figuring out what's the one thing you can do that would improve things. So I would want to figure out, what is it? Is it something physical, having a better dynamic warm up or just doing something to warm up? Is it the way my warm up is going, the way I'm hitting beforehand and being more physical? Maybe it's mental, where I need to work on focusing, getting that tighter funnel as I move towards my match and moving away from people and having my 15 minutes alone to get focused. And maybe it's, emotional, where I need to find a way to draw out some more positive, energizing emotions, like, being energetic, enthusiastic about the match and grateful for the opportunity, these kinds of things. So I think everybody's going to have different things. Try to find one thing and start to work on that. And remember that figuring out what kind of preparation works for you is like an experiment. There's some trial and error, as we talked about. So go try some things, give it that good college try, and see, keep working on it. Make little adjustments. To me, that's also fun. Hitting a tennis ball and the strategy of the game is fun, but also is figuring out how to be more consistently good at it. And there's a big part of this that happens, as we know, before the match. So get interested in it, know yourself a little bit more, and set one goal to make that a little bit better in whatever area you think will most help you.
Fantastic, Larry. And then just to let the audience know, I mean, is there any particular, projects or things that you're doing, things that are coming up, or anything that you just want the audience to let them know about that, or, also where they can follow you and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter, so at Larry Lauer, you can find me there. We have our Compete Like a Champion podcast, which you shared, so you can find all kind of our latest material that we're putting out there. as well as on our USTA player development website. We're sharing resources there. We also have a Net Generation USTA webinars that we're doing for juniors and parents as well. So if you have children that play, we have our USTA Mental Skills and Drills Handbook, which is now 12 years old, and I'm not ready yet to edit that thing. It's a beast, but you can find that at Coach's Choice or at Amazon if you're looking for more of a reference book and drill-based kind of things that you can do for your mental game. So those are different things. I'm certainly, my interests are continue to evolve. We're looking at different ways to try and simulate pressure, maybe using virtual reality. So stuff that we're looking at as well. And we're looking at cognitive training, so there's different things maybe that we can be doing in those areas. And again, that's stuff that we're doing with players that are dedicating their lives to tennis. But, there's some fun things that, recreational players can engage in, with cognitive training, which might also be good just for their well-being. You can get an Oculus headset and go into virtual environments, stuff like working with NeuroTrainer. You can do cognitive training. It's kind of interesting stuff, and I think pretty beneficial. We're working a lot as well on mindfulness and breathing, and just continue to expand what we know about that. Different forms of breathing. Some of the people on here might be aware of like Wim Hof breathing or any kind of breath holds. What's the science? Is there science behind that? How's that different from your rhythmic, deeper breathing? So we continue to study that and look at those things, as well as, how do we sort of take what we know and get it to the court? And to me, that's the biggest thing that we need to do, is we got to continue to find better and better ways to help players get things from the classroom to the court, from the practice court to the match court. And that's going to be continue a big focus for us.
Awesome. Love that. So yeah, definitely everybody go to and subscribe to Compete Like a Champion podcast, and as well, follow Larry on socials. And yeah, Larry, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the summit. It was really enjoyable, and I know everybody enjoyed it as well. So yeah, looking forward to making content with you again in the future, and then hopefully we can meet up when I come down next month. So
yes,
that'd be great. So yeah, thanks again. So thank you, Larry, and thank you everybody for attending, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.